In this tutorial video, I'm going to show you how to do your order of operations by going through a couple of examples. First of all, I want to refresh your memory on PEMDAS and what they stand for. So P stands for doing the parentheses first. And a lot of kids are thrown off by what parentheses mean. So real quick, just so that you can see the difference, let's say I have 2 plus -3, okay? Now granted, the -3 is inside parentheses, but there's absolutely nothing that I can do to this parentheses. For instance, there's no exponent on the outside of the parentheses, and there's no number before the parentheses. And there's nothing that -3 is being added to or multiplied to or divided to inside the parentheses. So if there's a number that's all by itself in the parentheses, you don't have to do your PEMDAS like that, okay? You wouldn't actually start with the parentheses part per se. When you actually have something like 2 plus -3, since there's nothing happening to that -3 except it being inside parentheses, you really just need to do something like this, or at least think of it like this. So we know that there's a 1 outside of the parentheses if it's just a plus or a minus. If you want to go ahead and follow through with your distributive property, +1 times -3 is just -3. So this whole thing just becomes 2 minus 3, which is -1. So be careful with that. The difference is, let's say I have something like 2 plus -3 minus 5. Okay, now I actually have something inside parentheses that I have to simplify first. So that's the main difference between those. Okay, if I wanted to follow this problem through, I would do 2 plus, let's see, this is -3 and -5 together, which is -8. And now I'm going to go through the exact same process that we did with this previous problem. There's a 1 outside here, so 2, and then a +1 times -8 is -8, which becomes -6. So be careful with your parentheses. The next one, of course, is exponents, and that's pretty self-explanatory. Exponents, I'm not the best speller. Okay, now with multiplication division, you can actually work these through in any order as long as you're going from left to right, which I will show you in a little bit. The same thing goes with addition and subtraction. Addition and subtraction always goes from left to right in the equation as well. If you don't go in that order, you may get these problems wrong. You have to be very careful with your PEMDAS. So let's take a look at some examples and see what to do. Okay, here's example 1. So I'm given 3 times, remember that there's a multiplication sign here, it's always understood to be there, the sum of 6 plus 7. So let's go through our PEMDAS. Are there any parentheses? And the answer is yes. So let's make sure that we get rid of those parentheses or simplify what's inside of them. So this is going to be 3 times whatever 6 plus 7 happens to be, which is 13. Now at this point in time, since there's nothing affecting these parentheses, you can actually get rid of them. So this is the same thing as 3 times 13, which is equal to 39. So in PEMDAS, there was no exponents. I went right into my multiplication, no division, well, the addition was inside the parentheses, and then no subtraction. Okay, so here's example 2. We have 40 divided by 4 minus the difference of 5 minus 3. So there's a lot going on in this problem versus the first example. So let's start with our P. We're going to do our parentheses first, which is right here. So we're going to simplify anything inside of them. So 5 minus 3 is going to give me 2. And I'm going to bring down every single thing that I have not used yet. Okay. Now, we still actually have a parentheses issue here, but it kind of jumps into multiplication because when I showed you before, this is in front of the parentheses, this is a minus sign, but there's a -1. It's a -1 that's out there. So before we do anything else, I've written in everything that I need. Are there any exponents? And the answer is no. Is there multiplication? Yes, there is. The multiplication is happening right here, the -1 times the 2. So -1 times 2 becomes -2. I'm going to bring down everything else, just like so. and then I have to go and hit division. So the two terms that have division right now is the 40 divided by 4. 40 divided by 4 is 10. Bring down everything else. Do I have any addition? Nope. Do I have any subtraction? Yes. 10 minus 2 is 8, and I'm done. Okay, last example. This is 20 divided by 4 minus the sum or the difference of 10 minus 8. There's two different sets of parentheses here. When we do PEMDAS, or for any of the problems that you are ever working out, you always work from the innermost to the outermost. When you have two competing groups of parentheses, you choose the one that is the inside first, no matter what. You always start from the inside and work your way out. So let's do this part first. 10 minus 8 is going to end up being 2. Okay, bring down everything else. There's a 4 minus here, group of parentheses here, division sign, and 20. All right. Now, there's still more parentheses that needs to be taken care of, which is this right here. Inside these parentheses, PEMDAS happens all over again. So inside this parentheses, I have to use PEMDAS in its own self. So I do have parentheses again inside the parentheses. Oh my gosh. So there's a -1 there. I have multiplication. The multiplication is happening here. Okay, so that's what I want to do first before I do the 4 minus anything. So what that all becomes is it's going to become 4 and then whatever -1 times +2 is. -1 times +2 is -2. Bring down the parentheses and then bring down everything else. Now, I still have this parentheses to take care of, which is very simple. So I'm going to bring parentheses down. 4 minus 2, 2. Bring division, bring down the 20. Okay, now, since in front of the 2, there's nothing that's a negative, we're going to assume that this is just a plain old +2. Remember that there's a +1 out here, okay? So I have no exponents, but now I've got multiplication. So I'm going to do 1 times 2, which is 2, bring down division, bring down 20, and then I've got my division here, which is 10. So PEMDAS can happen all over the place. Inside each parentheses, PEMDAS happens all over again. All right, I wish you luck. This is the end of this tutorial.